Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to my basement. It is hot and muggy. I hope you are in a nice, air-conditioned, comfortable room. My basement is not, but we shall continue on anyway. Tonight, we're going to look at Chapter 6 of Ecclesiastes. We're going to look at the whole thing. It's not very long. We're going to take it in two stages. Verses 1 through 9 are what we're going to talk about first. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Verses 1 through 9. There is an evil that I have seen under the sun, and it lies heavy on mankind, a man to whom God gives wealth, possessions, and honor, so that he lacks nothing of all that he desires. Yet God does not give him power to enjoy them, but a stranger enjoys them. This is vanity. It is a grievous evil. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with life's good things, and he also has no burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. For it comes in vanity and goes in darkness, and in darkness its name is covered. Moreover, it has not seen the sun or known anything, yet it finds rest rather than he. Even though he should live 1,000 years twice over, yet enjoy no good. Do not all go to the one place? All the toil of man is for his mouth, yet his appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage has the wise man over the fool? And what does the poor man have who knows how to conduct himself before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of the appetite. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. There's a lot going on there. And in typical Koheleth style, he's not making it easy on us to understand what he's trying to say. He's also using a lot of hyperbole here, as we'll talk about it a little bit here. But so basically, what's going on is a man in this story or example that he's using. A man has built great wealth for himself, but he hasn't nurtured his soul. He hasn't taken the time to find satisfaction of the soul, and has only pursued the satisfactions of his desires, earthly desires. And to that man, a stranger comes along and somehow takes the wealth from that man. And it could be that he stole the man's product or business, or marketed his product better. It could be something more nefarious, like he stole it from him, or something more violent or criminal. We don't really know. But the point is that the man no longer has the wealth that he had before. But because he took so much time to build his wealth, the man doesn't have the more meaningful connections to God and family. Regardless of the size of his wealth or his prodigy, he's still only going to find sadness. Now then Koheleth gets into the real hyperbole. This is a fairly familiar refrain now, saying that should this be the man's case, then his story is even sadder than that of the stillborn baby. The suggestion being that both end up dying in the end anyway, and at least the stillborn child will never know the sadness of the man who pursued only wealth and then lost it all. I think, most of us would, on the face of it, have a problem with that. We need to recognize that, like so frequently, Koheleth is really using a lot of hyperbole here. He's using an extreme example to prove his point. So let's not get too stuck on the awfulness of the stillborn child. I think it's more a demonstrative device than it is necessarily his true feelings. I'm going to go with that because it just works better for me. There's probably a lot more that could be said about verses 1 through 9, but I think the main point here is that a man who spends his life building all of these material things can have it taken away so quickly. And if he doesn't have the true faith and family connections, then, those things don't matter. Those are vanity. So I'm going to leave that section at that. Verses 10 through 12. Whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known what man is, and that he is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. The more words, the more vanity. And what is the advantage to man? For who knows what is good for man while he lives the few days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow? For who can tell man what will be after him under the sun? So I think this is somewhat of a response to the above. And you want to ask yourself, how would a person respond to the above? Would they beg for another chance? Well, there's two famous stories in fictional literature that I think kind of reflect man's desire if they could have it their way. And you're probably familiar with both of them. The first case is Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. And of course, towards the end of that book, Ebenezer begs the ghost of Christmas future for another chance. He wants to avoid dying in the loneliness and despair that his greed throughout life has left him in. He wants to take the newfound knowledge of what's important in life and enrich his own life with friends and family. And of course, in that story, he gets a second chance. So too in It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey finally sees what life would be like were he not in the world. He sees all he would have lost with the absence of family and friends, and he ends up begging Clarence the Angel to restore him. He begs for a second chance. Unfortunately, in life, we don't really always get that second chance. We don't even always get that wake-up call until it's far, far too late, if at all. But for the most part, or that is because for the most part, human destiny is fixed. At least the results of our choices once set into motion are largely irreversible. We don't get that time back. We don't get to reverse the course of some of our decisions. Coleth writes, whatever one is, he has been named already. We have been named man. And for better or worse, that comes with a long list of limitations. And one of those is that we do not have the ability to affect God's divine plan through our own will. He writes, for it is known that he is man, and he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he. I think it's funny that the name, or telling, I should say, that the name of the Hebrew people, Israel, I think loosely translated is something of the nature of he who wrestles with God. And that is a losing battle every single time. So I think that's interesting that Coleth is essentially saying here, if you wrestle with God's ways, if you try to do it your own way and think that that's going to come out better than his way, now I would advocate that his way being family, faith, integrity, values, those kind of things. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the hard right kind of values. I don't want that to be mistaken. But caring for one another, caring for your friends, caring for your family, caring for your strangers, for not your strangers, but for strangers. Those things that Christ teaches us to do. I think those are all important. And if we struggle against those things, I think we find in the end, it's not going to work out so good for us. Those are the real consequences of not living God's prescribed way of life. And I don't want to go too much further down that rabbit hole before we get into other kinds of beliefs. But that is chapter 6. It was short and mostly painless. I hope everybody is doing well out there. Please take care of yourselves. I know our church family has had some brushes with this thing lately. It's pretty scary. I've got a couple friends that are dealing with it right now. Thankfully, it sounds like all of them are doing okay. But please keep everybody in your prayers. Keep yourself safe and keep yourself healthy. I'll see you soon.